Good day, everyone. I'm Adish Rathod, presenting to you my dissertation titled Farming as a Means of Community Building and Social Development. A continued rise in population and dense urban centers have resulted in decreased quality of life and affordability of food and decrease in farming activities. Most things, except agriculture, can wait. These were the words by our first Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. The hypothesis thus states that agriculture has the ability to catalyze development of communities in various ways. Studying the expansion of cities with respect to agricultural land and how these changes can be mitigated by creating newer typologies with the aims of the study. Some questions pertaining to the Indian land use scenario, the new and old agricultural practices, social and physical impacts of land use change were explored in this research. The research starts with identifying some theories based on these questions. These theories find relevance in current scenarios, and thus those scenarios too were explored. Taking this research into account, generating a program idea which addresses these phenomena and caters to these affected users was generated. Certain factors such as large farming population and mention of farming techniques and practices in ancient scriptures have instilled a farming culture within the Indian people. This culture, though, was exploited by the British when huge amounts of raw materials were sent back to Britain and sold back to the Indians as finished goods. This was at the expense of Indian lives and farms being overexploited. This phase saw the commercialization of agriculture in India, which was later followed by the Green Revolution after our independence. While these intensive farming activities continue to support the cities, we now have started to observe certain phenomena due to the growing populations and expansion of cities. The expansion of cities is mainly based on what the people living there desire: jobs, better facilities, and better safety. These desires, though, start to gradually change with rising land rates and growing populations. The demographic changes lead to a larger chunk of population seeking cheaper housing. This cheaper housing is provided by the outskirts of the city or the urban rural fringes, predominantly occupied by farms and small houses. These fringes now start to see a mix of populations with different backgrounds, the rural and the urban. To service the needs of the urban populations, a diversification of these farmlands starts to take place. And with lack of planning and authority, it is often haphazard, and the hierarchies often start to break down with varied users and uses of lands, thus swallowing up farmlands in the process. This phenomena was taken into account by the Makarpatta city planning, but eventually they failed to retain any farming activity in the city, reducing it to a garden and an IT hub. Ideas to address these changes about densification, urban life, and integration of farming activities were also put forth by Ebenezer Howard in his book In Garden Cities: How to Run These Cities and Their Fundamental Characters of Integrating Urban Life with the Rural, thereby creating balance between the two. These ideas initially failed due to lack of blue-collar workers and affordability, thus rendering the place unprofitable for stakeholders. Subsequently, introduction of small industries and pockets of garden farms have brought this idea back and is being considered a success. Utopian ideas about deurbanization or de-densification were put forth by Le Corbusier, but they remained on paper due to their extreme nature. With partly successful ideas and the continued increase in population, the land use changes due to urbanization are becoming faster every day. These urban centers require skilled workers, and most migrating unskilled workers are exploited. Once considered skilled farmers, they now struggle to feed themselves, not owing to loss of farmlands or reduced food production. Their hunger is the function of unaffordability, rampant in cities. Looking from the point of view of farmers and farmlands, there are a lot of positives of urbanization as well. The farmers are not limited to just producing and selling away their produce. Diversification of farming related activities can be seen. There is increased demand of high value produce such as exotic fruits and vegetables. Other than that, non farming populations are engaged in small scale industrial activities, turning the produce into packaged foods for better service the needs. This brings in economic benefits too, enabling the farmer population to avail technical, educational, and healthcare support from the cities, thus forming a symbiotic link between the rural and the urban populations. There are economic implications to these factors as well. People in the urban rural fringes and the villages possess limited skills. The formation of new links between the urban and the rural population brings in that need for acquiring new skills. These skills can aid to harness the benefits of the new links that are being formed. Incentives like microcredits have been tried to aid unskilled workers and newly forming businesses, but they have not worked as intended. Creating new skills and providing assistance should be the main goals so every member of the community can realize their full potential. The conclusions drawn from these studies, such as farmers converting to unskilled and exploited urban workers to rapidly transforming farmland, can be observed in cities like Nagpur. Nagpur now is a new urban center for the Vidarbha region, with steadily growing population and a lot of new investment, bringing in institutes and companies. This has seen the city gradually expand in almost all directions, mostly along its main central road and towards the southwest parts, where the new Mihan project, along with Ames and new airport, which is planned for the near future. This expansion can be superimposed with the current and projected population trends, hinting towards more expansion towards the new airport and nearby areas along the Nagpur-Wardha highway. Considering these changes and a need for mitigating their land uses, creating awareness and development of the people already living in the city, I would like to propose various scales of interventions that are related to small scale gardening, skill building interventions, which can be implemented in various parts of the city at various scales. These factors further contribute to the criteria laid down for the site selection. The site would be close to new urbanizing areas and with prospect of more new settlement around it. Accessibility plays a vital role in terms of engagement and access to public transport. Migrating communities having a stake in the site might need to have access to good interstate transport, thus preferring proximity to major highways, along with diversified land and new residential communities, so better engagement can be created. Three options in various parts of the expanding city were explored. These sites fall at two expanding ends of the city, considering the population projections and scope for future growth. The first one is at Chinchbuan. This site shares its boundary with residential plots, but owing to smaller plot sizes and very little diversification, more options were explored. The site at Mubarakpur is an agricultural land with nearby major highway. With small agricultural land surrounding this one, the surrounding context has very little residential use. Thus, a migrating phenomenon cannot be seen, and thus major issues cannot be addressed at this site. The site, which was eventually finalized, was a 67,000 square meter plot which falls in the southern part of the city at Khapri, with a new airport at 4 kilometers away and 15 kilometers away from the city center. The larger context of the site is seen a lot of diverse land use, such as garages, public amenities, transport options, as well as residential and institutional uses. Here we can see the location of the site in the development plan. The available FSI in this area is 1.1 with no other reservations. With these side considerations and basic idea about certain goals for program, some cases were studied to learn how some projects have tackled community building and skill development with architectural interventions. The Dakakar rooftop is an urban level intervention connecting different parts of the neighborhood with the main rooftop, which holds various small scale gardening activities and other programs, thus engaging the neighborhood. The Panchabrao Krishi Vidyapit at the center of Nagpur city sees a lot of various typologies around, but somehow the city grew around this patch of land and the Krishi Vidyapit could never connect and integrate with the city. The macro gardens are a good example of how integrating local farmers can create a circular economy, and something that was initiated as a small scale production unit was transformed into a place where tourists can visit and the locals are engaged, giving them job opportunities and thus aiding local populations. The Hazel Hair Center uses local intelligence and volunteership to acquire and recycle waste. Along with its open nature, it allows for more engagement with its research and activities, thus breaking the barrier and better integrating with the place. Learning from these case studies, a better outline for the program was created. The main aim of the program is to create a place of belonging for the new migrating population. The migrating trends are not just limited from the urban to suburban, but also from rural to urban areas. Other functions along with these aim to empower the community with the help of economic benefits and stimulus, engaging in formal activities such as small-scale industrial food packaging and production units. The target users here are migrating farmers and informal workers, urban residents, local communities, and producers and consumers of the goods. These were assigned various goals based on the previous research and demographics. These individual goals aim to achieve a cohesive development in different factors. These factors are community building, production, processing, generating new research, and bringing together multiple stakeholders, and thus generating revenue and creating a more skilled community, paving the way for future development. These goals are further connected to architectural interventions, which are farming activities, processing units, retail markets and restaurants, recycling units, and an institute. These aim to contribute in achieving multiple goals, thus allowing for a more diverse engagement and helping to create a circular program with interdependencies among them, which can help to create a resilient and sustainable community. These programs are further detailed out with space considerations and supporting functions. These help gauge the share of programs. To support the programs and further understand the design and detail needs, research about how certain systems for vertical farming, soilless farming techniques work was carried out. Typologies of garden farms and their scales were also taken into consideration for further research. Edible plants and their yields and inputs were also studied. These would help in formulating site management techniques, and certain typologies of agricultural retail and food stalls were also studied to understand the character of spaces that could be achieved by designing. Farmers are the backbone of the country. Future developments of our cities should take into account their needs and make an initiative to integrate these activities for better development of all stakeholders. We should remember that producing food is not the primary problem, but affording it is. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you.